Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Horse Geeks podcast, where we look at horses and riding from the inside out. I'm Kirsten Nelson, professional horse trainer, and with me is my co-host, Deb Romero, certified Alexander Technique instructor. So today's topic, we dithered back and forth
We
over a
did.
bunch of different
We
topics,
did.
but I think after our last podcast about time, I kind of followed up and put the link to that podcast in my newsletter this month that goes out to
Okay.
people on my mailing list. And so one of the things I looked up was like, I'm always curious. I'm a definition geek, right? So I go,
I noticed that.
what's the definition? Like, what's the
What do they call
starting
that?
point, right? Because if we get a definition, at least we have a collective understanding of what that means, right?
Right.
And then physics always fascinates me. So I go, well, what's the definition of time according to physics? Right. And I found this great quote on openstacks.org. There was a whole physics class, and I somehow jumped into the middle of a textbook that was about time and movement
I
when
love
I
it.
found this quote. And and so in physics, it says the definition of time is simple. Time is change or the interval over which change occurs. It is impossible to know that time has passed unless something changes.
Wow.
And I loved that definition
Mm.
of time, right? So every measurement, this is part of the quote, every measurement of time involves measuring a change in some physical quantity. It might be the numbers on a clock, a heartbeat, or the position of the sun in the sky. So, in other words, time is a tool of measurement. And what came to my mind that I wanted to kind of continue this conversation about is that one of the issues in your work and my work that's such a huge paradigm shift for people that are new to the type of work we both do is that when we're monkeying around with coordination, right, that the clock can no longer be the measurement of success. Like the
Not the external
body,
clock, the internal clock.
or instead of saying an internal clock, I go, the changes in the body are the
Mhm.
measurement of progress or the measurement of time. So I go, the changes occurring are really what show the progress or the evolution when it comes to coordination.
Right.
And in the horse business, it's like every horse on the planet is expected to go from unrideable to basically safe to ride in 90 days. Like
Wow.
that's the calendar standard, right? Whether they're 2 or 5 or 10, it's like that 90 days of initial training is the clock and the calendar telling us the rate at which a horse should learn.
Right.
And I go, people and horses that just don't happen to learn at that rate
Mhm.
either fall behind because they're not getting it soon enough, or they get bored and mischievous because they got it sooner.
I had both cases with my kids. My
Homeschooling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and my son was way off the charts intelligent. He got everything except algebra. He never got algebra. And my daughter was the typical, just like me, the problems with comprehension, always had to read things over and over again, but still got straight A's just because of our persistence.
Yeah. Yeah. I was one of those persistent ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and after leaving school, I went back and found books that we had to read in literature class, but I never really got to read in a leisurely way and enjoy them.
Right.
And I really wanted to read them, so I would go back and find these books or go to the library and find them and actually read them because they're good books. That's why they're called classical literature, is
Right.
because they're actually good and they're enjoyable to read. So when it comes to horse training, like I get asked a lot, how long is it going to take to train my horse? What if I had a better horse? Would that go faster? Right? Or how
Mhm.
long, what can you get done in 30 days with this horse? And it's in my mind, like I used to really work hard to give a fair estimate,
Mhm.
and I was just wrong all the time.
Right.
Like I
I mean,
go,
but because we have certain expectations, I think, of where a horse should be, and it's not on a calendar timeline.
right. Like the other thing I hear back from people all the time is they can't believe how great and even younger their older horse looks after this work.
I hear that it's the same thing that happens with the Alexander technique in people, because
Hmm.
when you cut through all those layers of tension, the wrinkles go away.
Well,
You
not
know,
only that, you're restoring joint function,
right.
you're regaining mobility of the body or athletic agility of the body when you
Hmm.
know how to coordinate it correctly. And it does, you move better, you feel better
Hmm.
because it is a more efficient use of the body to have a balanced coordination.
Hmm.
And so you do have more energy
Yep.
and you do look less stressed,
Yep.
whether that shows up on a person or a horse.
Hmm.
And with horses, they actually start remuscling to and end up sort of looking younger than their actual age as they start to remuscle. And so that's another kind of relationship with time is in our heads we think, oh, if the horse is over 10 years old, they're basically
Hmm.
solid in their habits. If they're between 15 and 20, you can't reverse whatever's going on in the body. And yet it reverses all the time just by changing coordination.
When you give the right support,
And
and
I
the
think seeing
timeline's not an issue. A calendar time is not on the scope when we work.
it can't be
No, it
because
can't.
the body can't, it's like there's no time frame around learning to drive a stick shift. You learn when you learn, right? I go, now it's considered a millennial anti-theft device because nobody learns how to drive a stick shift anymore, right? Because it's hard to learn. And so that's one of those things that some people learn it really fast. Some people learn how to drive a car really fast.
Hmm.
And some people take a long time. Some people never get very good at it.
Some people don't even attempt it,
Right. Some people just don't even attempt to learn how to drive, much
right?
less drive a stick shift. And so when we look at coordination, driving or manual or automatic transmission, it's like everybody kind of has their own time frame of learning. And if it comes easily, maybe we don't need as much time to become proficient. And if we're not very good at it, we might need 5 times more than somebody
Right.
else and a lot more time, a lot more repetition. But everybody's capable of learning it. And that's kind of how I look at filling in rehab. I'm basically filling in educational gaps.
Right.
I go, the horse was supposed to know this by this age according to industry standard, but it doesn't. I go, so what are you going to do? Right? Moan and groan about it or start developing that as a skill. So,
And that's a really good point, because there's something in our world called the DART procedures, which is Raymond Dart. His son had a developmental disability, and what he found was there were gaps in his ability from going from an infant to an adult. Say, he missed crawling, and that
mm,
affects development later on in life. So if you don't fill in those gaps, like you said, I would imagine you bump up against a threshold,
yes,
and you've got
absolutely.
to go back and go, okay, why? instead of pushing through the threshold, expecting something on the other side, maybe we back up and go, well, why is that? What is missing that this horse human can't go past this threshold right now?
Right. Right. Or the threshold is behavioral issues that are now
Mhm.
becoming safety issues,
Right,
or movement issues that are now becoming lameness issues,
right.
right? From discomfort to pain. And the horses are always communicating with us non-verbally, but we just call it resistance, laziness, stubbornness,
Hmm.
crazy, hot, whatever. But those are all of those sort of behaviors are the horse telling us this isn't like, I don't get it. Either they don't
Hmm.
understand it or they can't do what you're asking them to do easily and comfortably. So there's some skill requirement or skill development required.
And I
So,
think that's where becoming better teachers and
yes.
instead of forcing it, we tend to go, okay, what is it we're missing? Let's back up and kind of
Yeah, and this
look
is
from a
where,
distance and go, what are we missing? And if we can't, how else can I try to get there a different direction than what I'm going?
right. And
Yeah.
what people want is I want my horse to be successful in my time frame. And I go, you can have one or you can have the other. But, usually it doesn't quite work with living bodies that you get everything you want within the time frame you also want. Something's got to give a little bit. And with horses, because they're so good at coping and they don't really have
Hmm.
a voice or a choice, it's like as long as they're kind of getting the task done, we're happy after 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. But then the problems, like it's very typical for a horse to go to a trainer and come home and all the training falls off. And I go, that's because the actual work between a horse and rider is dynamic.
Huge.
It's
I
very
totally
dynamic.
agree. I totally agree. I always like the involvement of the owner rider
Has to be.
in, yeah. And I'm actually may usually make them commit to at least 10 Alexander lessons off the horse.
Yeah, and I don't have that, but
But just for their own body organizational skills
yeah.
to be able to handle whatever the horse throws at them a little bit better.
And sometimes if there's fear issues or safety issues,
Hmm.
I'll step in and bridge the gap between the horse and rider, or I can show the horse sometimes a little bit faster than a person learning how to help a horse
Hmm.
coordinate. I can help the horse move through some of those challenges faster, but it won't last if the rider isn't continuing the same work or the
The
owner
continuum.
isn't
Yep.
continuing the same work. I go, and when I've tried to work like that, what I find is kind of funny, leave it to horses, is when the horses are kind of given a fair deal and you listen to them and you help them feel safer and more comfortable, whatever they were able to tolerate in the past starts to feel intolerable to them. And
Yeah.
it,
I don't need that anymore.
right, it can have
Yeah.
the effect of making me look like I made the horse worse, not better. And so I'm like, no, 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 no. We all need to be on the same page here.
Hmm.
And I really find it's a slower process. It takes more time, but to guide a person how to train their own horse
Right.
is one of the best educations we can have in the horse business
I totally
is
agree.
learn what you need to do to train your own horse, change the coordination, develop the movement, resolve the behavioral issues. And once you go through that, the first time is pretty slow, but it always works between the horse and the human, given enough time, given enough repetition. And that learning is like every other horse that person ever touches
It's
is going to
gonna, mhm.
benefit from their knowledge.
Right.
And every horse goes a little bit faster the more the human learns.
Right. The
But
the more we increase our knowledge.
yeah.
Yeah.
So looking at time, I go, if I take the time to gain the change in coordination that I need, the change tells me when I'm successful or when I move on to the next level or when I add more challenges,
Mm.
but not the time frame, not how many days a week or how many hours or how many months. I go, I got no idea.
And that's interesting because we always talk about our best mentors. And they always say, what is it that they always say?
It
It depends.
depends.
You give them a scenario. I mean, all through my massage career, giving them Whitney Lowe and other big wigs questions like, "Well, I have a client with blah 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 and blah blah blah, and what should I do?"
Right. This big intricate description.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he would always all of the best mentors would say it depends.
Yeah.
There is not one pathway.
No, and then the other answer I would get that was so annoying at first is I would say, okay, here's the scenario, and these are the three options I'm considering to resolve this issue, right? I'm either going to do A or I'm going to do B or I'm going to do C. I said, which one would you do? Which one would you pick? Or which one is going to work? Which one's not going to work? Um, and they would look at me and go, I don't know, try one and see if it works.
Yeah. And I think we get so stuck in the right and wrong that we forget that there's choices out there.
Not only choices, but if you're working with two living creatures,
Hmm.
the response of one person or horse to anything is like wildly unpredictable,
No kidding.
right?
That's
So,
why it's so stressful to take a test because to me there's they what do you mean I have a different answer for that? Wait, and it's not listed. Crap, what do I do?
oh, see, and I love taking tests because it was
Oh
so
my God.
orderly. It was
Oh.
so it was so predictable and so orderly, and you only had to
Oh,
think one way. And when I
that's
start,
hysterical.
yeah. But I went even sort of thinking of how we train horses, right? Are we looking at all the options? Are we thinking it through? Are we looking at different points of view? But even with all of that, as much pre-thinking as we could possibly do, at the end of the day, the horse is going to respond however the horse responds. And
Right?
so that's part of what we have to work with is just the dynamic response of the horse. I go to groom, well, take grooming. Some horses love it, some horses hate it. It's the same thing, right? I go, we
It's the
curry
same
the horse,
question.
we brush the horse, we do the same task,
Hmm.
but some horses will turn around and bite you. Other horses will kick you, and some horses fall asleep or they nuzzle you with their nose or they're so happy. And so those responses are not entirely predictable.
Exactly.
It's going to come from inside that horse or inside that person. And if I get a really defensive response, I'm going to first maybe change how I'm doing something and see if I get a different response. And if I don't, that defensive response in a horse, it turns around to bite you when you groom them. I go, that horse is telling me he or she has a problem.
Right. Instead of it just being
Naughtiness,
not right.
right? Naughty, bad horse. And it's like,
Yeah.
no,
And sometimes we don't realize that maybe we have to make changes.
well, that's what I mean. So let's just take grooming for an example, because this is a lot like I compare it to people getting a massage. Personally, I hate massages. Like,
Yeah.
you're the only one I let massage me ever because you adjust your feel based on the response, kind of the
Yes.
unconscious response. where I've had massages where some people are so light, it's creepy.
It's that
And I
touchy
have
that
had
yeah,
other massages that were so hard and intense that it was painful and uncomfortable. I never
right.
wanted to go back. And so I'm like, no,
I think you hit the
even when
nail
we're,
on the head about because it's my intention to be completely present because it's not about me and what I can do.
yeah, and I think if we're thinking of massage, like I release this muscle, I do this, I do that, just like grooming, right? I curry
Yeah,
because most people will pick up a curry and a brush, and whatever amount of pressure they happen to like
yeah.
is what they give the horse.
I totally agree with you.
And some
Or what you
horses,
think they need. There's a lot of that going on in the massage community.
oh, that too.
Yeah.
Dig into that muscle.
Oh,
Yeah.
but you really need this. And your body is screaming, no, I don't.
No, I don't. I'll be just
I
fine without it. I'm good. I'm good.
don't.
Yeah, so with some horses, you can have skin sensitivity and they don't like a hard curry. They don't
Mhm.
like a stiff brush. They like a soft
Or in
brush.
a specific area, like, finer things. God forbid you touch her belly. You know, you
And see,
can,
my horse Prima, that was her favorite spot on her entire body. If I
that's
rubbed her belly, she just,
too
started moving
funny.
her nose and grooming me back. That was her favorite. Belly rubs were her favorite.
And we need to be sensitive to these things,
Yeah.
aware of these things, and not say, oh, stop it, put up with it.
So that's what I mean. If I go to
Yeah,
groom a horse and I get a defensive response, so they either turn to bite me or they try to kick me or they pull back on the cross ties
twitch.
or whatever, instead of
Yeah,
forcing the grooming, which is supposed to be a bonding activity on top of getting your horse clean, um, instead of going like finding ways to make the horse stand still for grooming, I'm gonna adjust how much pressure I use, what kind of tools I use. There's hard curries, soft curries, stiff brushes, soft brushes, dander brushes, face brush. Like there's a gazillion tools, right? And I might even start like when we talked about the muscles, I might go through and palpate muscles and go, oh, that's a really tight spot, right? Maybe they don't want me to touch me. Like maybe the horse doesn't want me to touch
right,
because that feels like well done meat. I could bounce quarters off of that neck. So maybe they just don't, the horse doesn't want me to go anywhere near it. Or the horse wants a really good, firm curry, right? And I go, the horse has to tell me. All I
right.
can do is try changing the pressure I apply or the tool I use or palpate different areas of the body. And having that podcast we did on sort of a healthy, supple muscle feels like raw meat, and a chronically tight muscle feels like somewhat cooked meat or very well cooked meat.
Right.
So we can find those tight spots, right? We can find the soft spots and see how the horse responds to being touched on the softest muscles, and then how do they react on the tighter muscles? And so
I
the
think
horse
you hit
tells
the
us,
nail on the head. How did they react? So the same thing applies when we're training. What was the response when we asked that new question?
right.
Yeah.
Right, because if we take the old inside leg to outside rein, right? It's like grooming. Everybody does it. That'll be $50 and you've got a
Right.
dressage lesson,
And
right?
it works with 50% of the horses or whatever.
But even if you think of giving the leg aid, how firm, how light, are you
Oh, I
using
know
more
it.
pressure through the calf, more pressure through the ankle, more pressure from the heel? Are you using spurs? Are you following the leg up with a whip? Are you moving the leg bone inward or outward? Are you just tightening the muscles of the calf? Like just that
Huge.
inside leg, is the leg loaded or unloaded? Do you have your weight on the leg or on the inside seat bone or on the opposite leg and the
It's
outside
pretty
seat bone?
complicated.
Like it's a body.
It
I
does
go,
lots
there's
of
a
things.
there's a gazillion ways to do the same
Hmm.
thing. right? And so that's why when somebody says, how much time will it take to train my horse or get my horse to do X, Y, Z? Um, and I say, I don't know, because I first of all need to know how the horse is sort of having the problem they're having. And then the response of the horse is going to guide me into how fast we can move, how slow we move. Do we have to work through this in layers? Do we speed it up later? Do we jump right in? All of that depends on the horse's response.
And it depends upon the person. I was talking with a veterinarian about a horse that we're trying to place, and I go out and work with the horse and everything is fine. A new person shows up with maybe just a little bit of a nervous energy or whatever, and the horse explodes. So it
Mm,
could be something that the human
is bringing to
is
the.
bringing to
Mhm.
the equation.
Yep, that is very possible.
Yeah, and retraining the human is a factor in the progress of the horse.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And the other thing I always like to say is like, I can't, people can't, and horses can't consciously control their coordination unless the nervous system is in a relaxation response, meaning dominant in the parasympathetic nervous system. So if there's signs of stress, even coming to a new barn or at a new place or a new person, if there's already body language, energy, behavior that's expressing stress, then I go, well, that means the door to the coordination is currently closed
Exactly.
because the instincts are going to give you as part of a stress response physiologically, it controls posture and coordination. So it's not in our control, whether human or horse, during a stress response, conscious control over your posture and coordination just isn't available. It's
Right.
not accessible in that
You've
moment.
turned on the wrong nervous system for that.
Right. You're in a
Mhm.
different land.
You're totally in a
You're in a
different land.
totally different
Fight
land.
or flight
You
that you
can't get there from
can't learn
here.
there.
No, you can't.
You can't
You
learn in
cannot
fight or flight.
alter coordination. And yet, I'm looking at horses with their tongue sticking out, a sign of stress, right? A horse that plays with chomps on the bit, gapes the mouth, sticks the tongue out the side, wags the tongue, all of those signs of stress that horses will give. And what do? We strap the mouth closed, we get a different bit, we either change reins or change rein use or get some gadget, but we're not really resolving the stress issue. We're just kind of masking it.
And that
And
that
and
that's
and
such a slippery slope.
thinking that you can have a self carriage, a horse in self carriage that also does that makes no sense to me
Right.
because I go self carriage requires conscious control of the self. Hello,
Hmm.
it's kind of in the term. And in a stress response, no horse and no person has conscious control over the self. The
Mm-mm.
instincts are taking over. So I
Exactly.
go, if we're seeing signs of stress, that horse might look the part, but
The layers.
under all that glitter is still a pile of shit. Like it's just, you can make it all glittery, but it's still dysfunctional coordination under there because it's really not possible to be in a stress response and in a healthy, ideal coordination. I go, it's
And then there's to me there's also that when you're working with time, if your brain is thinking I've got to have this by blah 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 horse show.
that's where time comes back in. Is
Yeah,
I think if we're looking at development, whether it's learning or developing a horse's training
healthy
or
development.
rider development, I
Hmm.
go, those to me are creative endeavors. like a
That's a good way
painting
to
or
put it.
writing a song. I go, it doesn't have a time limit on it. Where when we're competing and we're thinking competitively, tick tock,
No
every minute
kidding.
counts. Got to get to the show, got to be ready in so many months, we're on a schedule. So this is where a lot of the harsher tactics start to kind of take hold. Because if we're thinking competitively, time is a huge factor.
It's a
And
barrier kind of, yeah.
well, it's a motivator of sorts to
It
push.
can be, yeah.
And
It can be
so
healthy or not healthy.
it can be a source of stress if
Yeah.
we're really thinking more about competition than anything else. Or
Instead of,
could,
like you said, the creative is where all the fluidity and self-carriage happens.
right. Or even if we just think of our job and our time off, it's like going
What's
to the
that?
job, time slows down, you're rushing, there's a lot of stress. Be at work on time, do your work in time, get home in time, don't take too long to get home. And then when we finally have a creative activity, time flies. Like
And it's
or
interesting
time
how,
stands still.
yeah, I don't know how we have to create space for creative time.
Yeah, which to me is the hour of horse training I have with the
Hmm.
horse I'm working with. To me, it's a creative endeavor because I'm measuring progress through changes. So if I'm not measuring progress, I still only have 1 hour on my watch. So within that time constraint, I'm trying to navigate the, where the horse is, how the horse responds, how much can we change in the direction of balance. And the horse, if I hit one of those thresholds, that's it. As soon as I start to get defensive behavior or signs of stress or a lot of resistance, that's the horse telling me this is a little too far for me today. And if
Today.
I
I
try
mean,
to
that's a good
force them
point.
through
Today
it, yeah, or right now.
or right now. I can't, not
Yeah,
right now.
right.
Ask a different question is usually what I do. I just ask a different question.
Right. It's like changing the feel of your curry comb or brush. There might
Right,
be a different way of approaching it that's more acceptable to the horse. So I'll
right.
try, that's what a training session is sort of trying out different strategies. And then when I find one that gets a good response and some physical changes in coordination that I'm looking for, I go, great, let's stick with this strategy and see if the changes can just start unfolding a little more regularly,
Mhm.
right? And then I go like rarely wrong. The horse at my barn is a great example. With all of her health issues, we've been doing the same exercise now for 7 months, but I'm finally getting changes that she wasn't able to achieve in the past several years.
I think that's a really good point to bring up because a lot of these where we're working with time, the 30, 60, 90-day thing, are we really being thorough, about getting certain basics? And I know both of us have gotten horses that were supposedly trained that won't stand for the farrier, that won't
Won't get
stand
in
at
a
the mounting
trailer.
block,
Yeah.
won't get in the trailer. And I'm like, oh boy, guess what? We're back
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, or
We're not up here. We're back here.
you can only ride on a Sunday if the footing is perfect, it's not raining, it's not windy, and all the neighbors are off property, right?
Oh,
And
I got
so
scolded
there's
at a dressage barn for opening a door to the arena while somebody was riding.
oh, without yelling door,
Door.
right,
I was
right.
like, you gotta be kidding
Yeah,
me.
because it can spook the horse, right? And so
Well, that
yeah. And so that's like that fragility is sort of a horse going, they don't really own what you think they know. They
exactly.
go through the motions, but when
Right,
we
but they
have,
don't, like you said, own it. It's not inside them. It's just an exterior thing
Right. Or we get the horse back, the horse is trained, quote unquote, but it's a million aids per second. It's like lift the head, bend the neck, lift the head,
Micromanage.
do this, leg, put spurs on. He's not listening to your leg. He won't maintain forward or fast enough forward,
Hmm.
turns right but not left, drops the shoulder. All these problems we hear about all the time that we're sort of managing but never really resolving.
Right,
I go, those are all coordination problems, and it's a lack of integrated education for the horse.
right.
So they went through the motions, but it's like people who go through school and can't remember, couldn't pass an algebra test 2 years after they left the class,
Could
right?
be me.
Yeah, could be me.
Could be me.
Yeah.
Well, and we're kind of, if you think about it, our whole teaching system is based on time.
Oh, yeah, you're
So,
supposed to learn XYZ this
mhm.
year or you fall behind.
And oh,
Yeah.
yeah, all of that.
And
And
people who,
that's a level of stress that's put on kids
yeah,
that's just horrible.
it's why we have horses and people that apparently fail the system. And to
Mhm.
me, education or training a horse and a rider is about success no matter how long it takes.
I like that.
I,
Success, no matter how long it takes.
yes, because we're all capable of learning. That's a given. I go, every person can learn, every horse can learn. So how do we adjust in order to develop the skills, integrate the knowledge, gain the experience, do the repetition? And
Mhm.
that's where I go, I can't say how long that will take, but I can say this horse and rider will be able to do that, right?
Exactly. At some
So,
point.
yes,
Yeah.
at some
It
point.
it was kind of like me in Alexander school that it took until my last semester of the third year to be able to let go of my legs. It took that long
Yeah.
to finally be organized enough that somebody could pick up my leg without me grabbing.
Yes.
So that kind of thing.
That kind
And
of
of
detail.
course, there's this whole psychological thing going on in my head. Why can't I do this? And, you can really get muddled down by your own thoughts around time. Like, why haven't I been able to do this in this amount of time?
Right. Because in
Mhm.
our educational system, that translates into I'm stupid,
Right.
right? And
And
that's kind
there's
of how
so
we
much
look at
body,
horses.
yeah, there's so much body intelligence that horses and people have. It's all there.
Yeah.
It's just tapping into it at the right time.
Yes. And that is where time plays a role because when we're sort of like tick tock, got to get the job done, that competitive way of thinking. So if we're going through school competing for good grades, we may be able to cram and spit back out some answers, but they're maybe not, maybe never learned anything in the process.
I can relate to that.
And that's how a lot of horses go through training.
That's a
It's
good
sort of
point.
like cramming, show what the horse can do, and then hurry up and get him in the show or sell him before it all falls apart,
Hmm.
right? And that's how a lot of horses get passed around and passed around. There's these great videos of everything the horse could do, but when that horse shows up at this location with all new environment and all new people, none of that's immediately accessible. And I go, it doesn't mean it's not in there. It's
Exactly.
just that it is too unique and dynamic to say, oh, the horse learned this, so that horse is going to do the same thing for every person. And that's the concept of training.
It is that the horse is an
Mhm.
object and they learn certain things in certain time, and it's not that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have plenty of examples of people who have gone through the education system that are not all the same level of intelligence, that can't all do the same things. Everybody's
Hmm.
unique, right?
Exactly.
And I decided I could fill in my own educational gaps where I struggled. I go, nobody's stopping me from reading a book. or getting online or learning something, I go, I don't have to go to school to do that. There's a lot of information
There's so much
available.
out there that's available now.
And
And
once I
it's,
started looking at horse training as a more creative process, I go, what
mm,
I'm doing is, I think it was Michelangelo who said he found the stone that held the David and he chipped away what was not the David, the famous sculpture he did. And I
wow.
just thought that was such an interesting way to look at it because I go, I look at the horse, there's this raw material that has this amazing jewel inside, and I'm going to chip away the parts that are hiding that. And
Yeah, I
that
like
is a
that.
really creative process or a creative way to look at horse training. And so all of a sudden, I wanted more knowledge. I wanted to study. I wanted
Mm.
to take the time. I wanted to put in the time. And it didn't matter how long it was taking because it was sort of like if Michelangelo had to produce the David in 30 days, it might be a very different statue.
No kidding. Big chunks.
Big chunks, big chunks. Might have used a little tracer,
I
right?
do, and
Or a
it
power
even goes
tool.
it goes back to that lesson I had with you when I thought I could go back into competition and you put one pole out in front of me and I
Just one.
totally blew it. Just that stimulus of my thinking,
All your thinking just shifted.
it shifted
Yeah.
into this competitive mode and all everything went just fell apart. It was
No,
amazing.
and
It was amazing learning experience.
I kind of like these conversations we're having about time because in your work and my work, the initial impression is that it takes too long
Oh, I hear that all the time.
all the time.
It's too slow, it's too boring, it takes too long.
Right.
Um,
And I go, so you can have the same problem for years, or you can take a few months to fix it. Like
right,
that's your choice. It's up to you. You can leave your horse lame and not change the coordination. That's also a choice, right? You can put your dangerous horse out to pasture and leave him alone. That's another choice.
right. That's the point.
But I think the biggest, it finally, like reading that definition of the physics definition of time, it was like this light bulb went off in my head. And I went, oh, that is the massive paradigm shift of people going from, say, yoga or Pilates to the work you do, or even from
Mm,
massage to Alexander technique. I go, there's a massive paradigm shift.
yes,
And when people come to me, when I say I'm a horse trainer, I go, they ask me what kind. And I go, I do rehab because nobody knows what that
nobody
is.
knows what we do.
So I go, I just made that up. That's what I do, rehab training. But it's because it's so important to change the paradigm.
Yeah,
And once we get into the category of rehab, the clock stops mattering so much. When we're in the world of competition, the clock
hmm,
matters a lot. And I go, that paradigm shift. And so a lot of my clients, we meet after the horse has gone lame, after the horse has been given up on, after he's
yep,
failed training at several barns or they have big problems. And I go,
hmm,
but going through that process of failing the system, suddenly,
right.
suddenly we got time.
And I get the same with people. I have a new client, and I'm going to say he's in maybe his 30s or 40s.
Hmm.
And the first appointment was going through the system of the years of stuff he's tried.
Mm,
And, he got to the end of the medical rope and showing up at my office.
yes.
Yeah, so and then it really opens people's eyes as to really how simple it can be because I think you have to get to a place of I don't know what the word is. Like you said, these people are coming to you. They're like, I'll try anything.
Well, that's how I got down this path for myself,
Yeah.
was not giving up, seeking a solution,
Hmm.
but being so frustrated because everything I was trying wasn't really working for me or
Exactly.
my horse. And it was like banging your head up against the wall over and over.
Hmm.
And then I would find a mentor and a little thread of this information that started to turn things around. And I was like, okay, I'm going that way. But yeah,
And
I
I,
think sometimes
yeah,
we have to get to the end of our rope before we're even
mm,
willing to try something different.
good point. Yeah, either a pain indicator, a personality indicator. There's always a time interruption.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I just thought of that.
Yes,
It interrupts your cycle of time you think it should be.
right. Or
Life
agenda
just
or
happens.
schedule.
Bam.
Yeah, bam, you're going the other way.
Yeah, hey,
Sorry.
hello, wake up. We're not going there anymore.
Right.
And I think it's happened to all of us. And you're right. We have choices. We could continue on the same path. We could stop and go, well, wait a minute. This
We could
isn't
fight it.
working.
Yep. We can
Yep.
fight it. We can go kicking and screaming, but
We can push that door and push that door, and it still doesn't open. And we've wasted a lot of time.
yeah, and people don't recognize that waste of time as
Yeah,
easily as
right.
when you slow things down and become present and you're looking for changes as your measurement of time. I think that's what makes it feel so slow because it's hard to get the
Mhm.
changes. So I go, that sort of makes time stretch out, where at least if you're busy, busy, busy and you're ticking things off your to-do list, you feel like you're getting things done, right? Not really analyzing how's that working,
How's that? How am I doing that?
right? How's that
Am I doing
working,
it in a healthy way or a not so healthy way?
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, or am I with even some young talented horses? What I see is you can use up all that athletic potential or you can nurture that athletic potential and really have a dynamo. But depending on how much we sort of look at time as a measurement of success in training, is why a lot of horses, we're just using up their talent and they're getting pretty washed up by the age of 10, 11,
Hmm.
12 instead of competing into their 20s.
Right.
I go, that's the difference. And
I was
so,
watching, I don't know what 5 star it was, that was just on about, and they were sharing that horses in the eventing world that are 10, and they're saying they're young, they're new to this.
yeah.
This is a beginner at this point. And I was like, wow, that's interesting.
That's fantastic because
Yeah,
the athletic capacity it's going to take to do a 5-star event, if they're not physically prepared, people get hurt, horses get hurt or
yeah,
die.
it can be disastrous.
Hmm.
Their level of training is much different than other types of competition.
Yeah, and you can't make it look good and get over those jumps and
No,
gallop. I go, you can put all kinds of glitter on it you want, but functionally,
but
it's not going to happen
the
at,
use of the body of two bodies, the
yes.
horse and the rider, are critical.
Yeah. Yeah, so I look at some dressage horses and I go, they couldn't step over the kickboard, right? Without tripping. And I like watching stadium jumping, eventing, steeplechase, racing because I go, those are still the most sort of you can't fake it sports. Now,
Right?
you can use up a young horse's talent
Yes.
very quickly in those sports or create damage, right? If they're not properly educated. But if you have an educated horse, which takes a number of years, right?
Years,
A
mind you,
10-year-old horse,
years
that's
is just
about,
beginning,
yes, at that
just
level of
beginning.
athletic
And
capacity.
I know they must start with them around 5.
Yeah, Yep.
for eventing. They're bringing them along. It takes years to get to that competitive stage.
Yeah, and we're looking at other sports where we've got 5-year-olds, 5-year-old horses trying to pull off these super athletic maneuvers that should take 10 years to
Exactly.
train a horse to do. But we're kind of tick-tock making it
We're
work,
tick-tocking it.
tick-tocking it. But I
Yep.
think, shifting our paradigm because I go, a relationship is a creative process.
Mhm.
Having a relationship, I go, okay, we can say we've been married for so long, our kids are so old, and that kind of means something.
Right.
But really, that relationship doesn't have a kind time constraint on it.
No, it
And
evolves. It's an evolution.
yeah, and some couples
Hmm.
spend a lot of time together, some don't spend as much time together. But that relationship is a creative endeavor between two
Hmm.
people. And I go, that's kind of how I look at my relationship with horses. It's a creative endeavor. We're going to stay together. If I own the horse, we're not
We're
getting a
for life.
divorce.
Yeah, we're lifers here.
We're lifers. So I got to figure out how to creatively have a mutually beneficial relationship with that horse, not all my benefit and not at my expense.
Exactly.
So that to me is a super creative endeavor. And then when it comes to coordination, it's very creative.
Yeah.
It's there is no predictability. I go, there's principles and there's possibilities. Maybe we can limit the scope of the possibilities the more we know, but there's still
Yeah.
these complicated variations that you can't predict.
Exactly. It always keeps me learning.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the more creatively I look at horse training, the more I want to learn.
Yeah.
And that's why we did Horse Geeks, because it's like, of course we're geeks
Of
because
course
we
we're
love it.
geeky.
Yes.
We're always looking for
Because we
something
like
new.
learning.
We do.
Yes. Yeah. It's fun. And speaking of, I got to go take care of horses,
Yeah, me too.
so I got to go run. But thank you everybody for joining us for another episode. We hope our little sidetrack on time has been interesting to you.
What is
Um,
your relationship time with time? It changes.
Horse time. That's what
Horse
it is
time.
right now. Horse
Okay.
time. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks for the subscribing and the downloads and the shares and the comments. So appreciated.
Send
Thank you
us
very
questions.
much.
We love questions.
Yes. And questions are always good. Sometimes we'll do a whole podcast around it. So thanks again,
Yes.
everybody. Look forward to
Thanks,
seeing you next
everybody.
time.
Bye.
Bye.